this is going to be a good section because we're going to be talking to you about how you can walk the walk and talk the talk, and of course how you can come across as confident on your dates. And I mean, let's be honest here. If we ask people what qualities are you looking for in a partner, doesn't like 90% of people say that they're looking for someone who's confident within themselves? And I'm also going to be hopefully teaching you how you can start to build that sense of being confident through your actions on your dates. But before we get into that, I think it's time for another survey. And this is linked to that feeling of confidence. And I want to ask you, do you feel anxious about first dates? So almost the inverse of being confident. Can you vote yes or no? Yes, do you feel anxious before a first date? Or no, do you feel cool, calm and collected before a first date? Please vote now. Again, we'll get back to those survey results at the end of this section. So the first way I want to focus on how you can come across in a way that's more confident is when you're on a date, I want you to get more comfortable with, just like I said to Michael really, taking up a bit more of the limelight in the conversation and expressing your true opinion. Now, as British people, this is probably going to feel deeply unnatural because we're going to want to ask the other person lots of questions about themselves and direct the focus of the conversation towards them. You may also want to do things like ask them their opinion on things or for recommendations. And whilst all these things are fine, they may not make you come across in a way that's confident and assertive. So if you want to appear more confident on your dates, it's time for you to start taking more of a leading role in the conversation. Now, this could be relatively subtle, and it could be as simple as you, instead of asking someone what they like, it could be making a statement about what your preferences are. It could be saying, instead of, where do you like to go travelling? You could say, you know what, I love travelling in Southeast Asia. Like I've just got a mood board full of pictures of places that I want to go. So by stating your preferences, you come across as more individual. It gives the other person a chance to understand what you're into, and it also appears more confident. You can even take this a step further and give someone a recommendation. Now, I would avoid giving recommendations based on physical appearance, especially on a first date, but in fact, probably at any point during the dating process. So I wouldn't say, I think you'd look better with shorter hair or anything like that. Stay away from those kinds of recommendations and opinions. But instead, you could say, oh my gosh, there's a restaurant I know you'd love, or you should really try CrossFit sometime. It's so much fun. I think you'd be really into it. So make sure your recommendations are positive and supportive, but by going out there and again, taking that leading role in the conversation and not sitting on the sidelines, what you're effectively doing is you're showing the other person, I'm just not here to impress you. I'm actually here to express myself. And what the deeper meaning of that is when you're focused on self-expression as opposed to impressing someone, it shows that you're not there, that you don't have to win that date. They don't have to like you, because it's actually more important for you that you connect with someone that you're genuinely compatible with. There's also other ways that you can express that opinion. So you may find on your dates, you become worried if you don't have everything in common with your date. And I've said this before, but really dating isn't like a game of Snap. We don't need to have everything in common with a person for it to click and for it to work. So instead of approaching it in that way that's like Snap, if someone does say something that you're really not into, this can be a great way to get some playful disagreement and, dare I say it, flirtation weaved into the conversation. So I'm trying to imagine if this was me. If this was me and someone said, I love surfing, immediately in my mind I'd be panicking about like waves and salty water and cold and wet. So instead of faking it that I've actually always desperately wanted to go to Hawaii and surf, it would be so much better to be like, oh no, I don't believe you're into surfing. I have to say, like, you're going to have to go a long way to convince me to try that with you. So phrases like, you're going to have to go a long way to convince me, or I don't believe you like that, or oh no, we're so incompatible. Because you're saying it in a really playful and animated way, the other person knows you're not being serious. And instead, you're just creating the opportunity for some playful flirtation. And again, you're showing that you're not just sort of going along and being a people pleaser and trying to agree with everything they say. Instead, you're really advocating for yourself. Likewise, another little golden rule which goes in this bracket is about not being too apologetic on your dates either. So yes, I want you to be assertive and make recommendations. Yes, I want you to be open if there is a point of incompatibility and to play with it, be playful with it, make fun with it. I also want you to ban yourself from ever saying to your dates when you get home, you know, oh, I'm sorry I was so shy, or I'm sorry I was so awkward, or, you know, being self-deprecating can be playful and it can be funny, but don't apologize to someone for like wasting their time or taking their time or being who you are. Remember, this person is lucky to be on a date with you, and you're lucky to be on a date with them. Everyone's lucky. So don't ever apologize or say sorry for how you presented yourself on a date, you know, if it's just making a statement about your character. And this really links to my next point about how to get more or come across as more confident on your dates, which is all about keeping it light. So we don't want to go too heavy on our dates. I think as a Love Island character would say, it's not that deep. Being light-hearted in how we communicate with someone really demonstrates to a person that we're comfortable and that we're not taking this too seriously. Because remember, first dates should be fun, they should be relaxed, it should be just a chance to get to know someone. I know you might not think that or feel that way about them at the moment, but that's what we're striving towards here, for you to find dating fun and enjoyable on your path to finding that amazing committed relationship. So in order to keep it light, we want to avoid doing a couple of things. First of all, I would say avoid over communicating. So it's very good to be open and to be candid, but just remember that also has to be in context of how long have I known this person. So a first date is not a therapy session. So be conscious of being open with a person, but before you go into too much depth or detail, you may also just want to check in that that's the level that they like to communicate on as well. And remember, whilst it's nice to have some moments of deep conversation, you also want to have some moments of just play and fun, because that's one of the best parts about being on a date. It's a chance to have fun and it's a bit of escapism and enjoyment. Likewise, you also want to avoid making too many demands over someone that you've just met. So say you leave that first date and your car breaks down, well, that's very bad luck. I wouldn't be calling up or messaging your date to come to your help, right? You'd want to be contacting all those friends and family members. Remember what we spoke about earlier, that your date doesn't just jump in at pole position in your life. They have to earn their way through this continued relationship they're developing with you to being the person that you would call up if your car got stuck in the mud or broke down. So remember, keep it light on your dates. This also comes through in your tone of voice. I often get asked what's good to talk about on dates, and there's lots of good things to talk about, but often it's not what you talk about, it's how you talk about it. So you can say like, oh my gosh, we're so incompatible, right? But if you say it with a smile on your face, with a light-hearted voice and lots of expression, again, it creates this playful atmosphere which helps everyone to feel more relaxed. Finally, if you are on a date and you find yourself really disagreeing with something someone says, kind of watch out about getting too drawn into that dating experience. Again, remember, this person is not here. You just met them, they've just come into your life. So they probably shouldn't have enough power over you to make you feel really angry about something. So perhaps just make a mental note that there's that point of compatibility and let it go. The next way that you can come across as more confident on your dates is actually in your date planning or being proactive as part of that process. Again, if we like someone, or if you like someone, you may find yourself over-compromising because you really want to have that date with them, right? You find yourself driving ages to meet them, or going to, the pub that's like opposite their house, but it's a long way away from you, or you may find you overspend. When we overgive, though, at the start of the dating process, this is like a surefire way to feel bad about dates, because on a first date, you don't know how that's going to evolve and whether there'll be more dates. So you really want to make sure that that first date is going to also be an enjoyable experience for you. So this could mean, again, that you become someone who recommends and suggests. Could you suggest a first date that you would find fun and enjoyable anyway, even if you didn't go on a date with, even if you never went on another date with this person again. So that could be, instead of, if they suggest going for drinks, if you'd like to get them to know them in the daytime more, could you just say something like, that sounds like a great plan, but could we start with a nice latte instead? It could be that you drag somebody along to a yoga class or do an activity date that you think you'd really enjoy. So get proactive about the date planning. Also, if the location they've suggested is like very hard for you to get to, make a compromise and suggest somewhere halfway. This degree of assertiveness, where you're kind of looking after your own self-esteem and your own interests, actually again will come across in a way that's confident. You could also think about how you state your date suggestion. So if you're the person who's suggesting the date, you could say, let's do this, or how about we? So you can use this more assertive phrasing to also come across in a way that's more confident on your dates. And also finally, remember, you don't always want to do dates last minute. So if someone, only ever messages you at 6 p.m. on a Friday suggesting drinks, again, be confident enough sometimes to put a boundary down and not necessarily jump at that opportunity to go on a date with them, and instead start to prioritize how you would really like to date someone. So if you want to come across as more confident, be proactive at suggesting what you like on dates. Say things in a nice and assertive way. Say, how about we do this? Or let's do that. If something's super inconvenient, suggest another option for you. And don't always go in for last minute dates. It's okay to turn a date down and to instead suggest meeting again at some other point in the future. Scary because you let the chance that date go, but it can actually be a really good one to build your self-esteem. So the final way I want to suggest that you can come across more confidently on your dates is for you to start to think about physical touch. Now, I think we've had a bit like a 2-year break from physical touch on our dates, thanks to COVID, but it's not exactly behind us, but now it's sort of somewhat manageable and the new normal. I want you to think about how you can incorporate touch into your dates. Now, touch is a great way, obviously, of figuring out if you have a spark or compatibility with someone. And just like being more assertive in the conversation or making a recommendation or inviting somebody on a date, these proactive leading roles within your dates will help you to come across in a way that's more confident. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be overbearing and creepy. In fact, before your date gets started or right at the beginning of the date, you can just check in with your date and say, like, so are we going to do hugs, or are we still in elbow bump territory? Again, by being open about what level of physical touch you can have, and by being assertive and communicating, you're going to come across really well and really confidently. Now, hopefully, if your date is comfortable with having a degree of physical touch, you can also choose to be the initiator of physical touch. That means that you can try and touch the person and see how they react. Now, obviously, when we touch somebody on a date, we want to do a touch that's nice and safe. We don't maybe want to stroke their hair or their leg or the small of their back. That might make people have the heebie-jeebies. But at the start, if you just touch someone on their arm or on their forearm, this is a relatively safe place to kind of test the water and see how someone feels about you touching them. Now, a few rules of thumb here. Don't look where you touch. That draws too much attention to it. Don't maintain the touch. It's brief and light and gentle, and don't stroke. Just keep it a light initial touch. Now, once you get that light initial touch in, notice how the person responds. Do they reciprocate? Do they lean in? Do they smile? Or do they withdraw and fold their arms? Of course, if at any stage you get a negative signal from a person that they're not looking comfortable, just leave it right there. And another thing that can come across surprisingly confidently, if you're not sure how you feel about when to try and initiate touch, is again, you can just ask someone for consent. Consent is obviously very sexy and really cool, and it's very 2022 to be able to verbally ask that on a date. And again, this can come across in a way that's really confident. You could say to someone, so can I kiss you now? Boom, that would create a bit of a bombshell of flirtation in the date. But again, said out loud, it means that you've got the consent thing cleared because you're going to get a straight yes or no. But again, taking that forward step by being assertive enough, it can actually help you to come across really confidently on the date. And of course, another way that you can come across confidently is if you don't quite fancy kissing someone just yet, just say, that's a very tempting offer, but that's more of a 5th date thing for me. So again, smile, bring lightness to it, assert your boundaries, and again, you're going to be coming across brilliantly confidently on your dates. And if you are thinking about potentially having a bit of a kiss on your dates, also remember to choose a date venue that's going to be conducive to that. Have you ever tried to kiss somebody across one of those little dining tables? It's very, very difficult. So make sure if you're thinking about initiating some physical contact, that maybe you go to a bar where you can sit side by side, or maybe even a nice park bench. Anyway, before I get into our recap, I can see that my survey results have come in. And you know what? That's really funny. It's exactly the same amount of people who said they have a fear of rejection dating. They also feel anxious about first dates. So 70% are not feeling that confident. So again, just like the 70% who said a fear of rejection held them back in dating, 70% of you out there say that you feel a bit anxious about your first date. So I guess that means, on a positive note, that there's 30% of you out there who are feeling supercharged and really confident. So I'm happy about that. Okay, so let's just go into a quick recap before I get round to some of your questions. So remember, touch is a bit like a dance. It means when you take a step forwards and touch someone, we really want to look out for that reciprocation from them. Are they touching you back? Do they seem happy and relaxed and confident? If so, I want you to keep thinking about how you can initiate touch on your dates. I also want you to work on being open about what your date preferences are. It's great if someone suggests a date, but don't be afraid to counter-suggest or to make the date suggestion yourself. This is quite an easy way that you can come across as more confident. And finally, always remember to share your true opinions. This isn't about having everything in common with the person. Instead, it's actually much more important that you focus on your own self-expression, because remember, you're not there just to please the other person. You're here for you to work out if this person is a potential match. So before we get on to our next section, I've got some questions that have been sent in from you at home. The first one is from Lee, who asks, how do I make my profile stand out for the crowd, and what to ask is the first icebreaker question? Lee, I could probably, and in fact I think I have in the past, do a whole live coaching session about this. So just like I recommended before, you might want to go through all the on-demand videos that are on Match's website and go specifically to the live coaching sessions where I've been talking about tips for your profile, because that's going to give you so many good pointers in there. But just a few quick tips for you now. Photos are really important. You have to have at least 4, but preferably more. Think about how visible you are in your photos, because we really want to create that trust and make you highly. So in order for someone to trust you, they have to be able to clearly see who you are. So get rid of the sunglasses, get rid of hats. And also, even if a picture is really cool, like it's got a big pyramid in it, if you are really teeny tiny and hard to see in the picture, don't use that picture. Instead, use pictures where you're clearly visible that build trust. Now, when it comes to your written profile, a really good hack, not just for you, but for everybody out there to see how your profile sounds, is to read it out. Read your profile out loud to yourself and think, do I come across in a way that's conversational, that's relaxed, that's charismatic? It's going to be much easier to tell when you read something out loud than just through reading it to yourself in your head. Finally, when it comes to what first messages to send, I can never say this word, specific is always better. So can you look at someone's profile and send them a message that's personalised to them? This is so much better than sending a "Hey, how are you" message, which might get buried in their inbox amongst a bunch of other "Hey, how are you" messages. So unique is always good. The next message, which kind of links to what we were speaking about in this section, is from Nishant, who asks, how to approach someone without looking like a creep. Now, I know that earlier on that 70% of you said that a fear of rejection holds you back from dating. If that's the case, probably a big part of that is feeling that fear that if you do make it a move and approach someone, they're going to think you're creepy. And, you know, none of us want to be creepy. A good workaround for this is use that fear as your conversation starter. I know this sounds weird, so bear with me. If you look and see someone you'd like to approach and think, oh, I'd love to say hello to them, but they're with a friend, say that as your conversation starter. Say, I know I'm gate crashing, or I know I'm gate crashing, but I just had to come and say hi. So you are demonstrating your social intelligence by acknowledging what's going on for them in the moment you say hello to them, but you're still being confident enough to approach. And of course, just like the touch thing, if that cool ice-breaking opening line is met with a bunch of tumbleweeds, it's fine. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Just take that feedback loop that for whatever reason that person isn't open and let it go and wish that person a good day. Because we only become creepy when we move faster than the other person's comfortable with, or again, you don't take that feedback loop when someone does want to leave the conversation. So remember, as long as you're perceptive of the signals about how comfortable they are within the conversation, and as long as you acknowledge what you're doing, you're not going to be creepy. So I really want to give you the confidence, Nishant, to feel happy with making the first move. The final question in this section comes from Sass, who asks how to check credentials and how genuine a profile is. Well, again, wouldn't it be good? Again, I think what I'm getting from this, Sass, is just like the lady earlier on, you're perhaps entering dating with that feeling of like, with that feeling or sense of, is this profile going to be genuine or not? And instead, remember, go back to that positive belief that yes, while some people may not be who they say they are, they really are in a really tiny minority. So most people that you are going to be interacting with will be 100% genuine. Of course, take some basic precautions to be safe, such as never send money over the internet. And if someone is unable to chat to you on the phone or to meet up with you in person after you've exchanged a good amount of messages, then again, that should be a bit of a red flag that this person might not be who they say they are, or simply might be too anxious to meet and have the relationship you want. So stay focused on some basic common sense principles to stay safe with dating, but keep that positive assumption out there that most people are genuine and will want the same things as you. Okay. So we're going to go on to our next section now, and this is kind of like a rapid fire section about 10 hacks to build your confidence. So get your notepad at the ready. These are 10 hacks that are going to help you to feel immediately more confident.